Hi, Andrew.
There, Dr. D'Souza.
You feel free to call me Johann. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
What do you do, Andrew?
That's a big question. I am a fundraising consultant, but I also own our company. So Petrus Development was founded in 2005 to help Catholic nonprofits learn how to fundraise. I've been involved with them since the beginning. I was part-time for a while I was fundraising at other organizations. Took over management in 2017, bought the company in 2019. And so now that's what we do is we still continue on the mission of teaching Catholic nonprofits how to fundraise and help organizations through three different types of services. We do courses, we do coaching, and we do capital campaigns. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
What's the basic strategy for fundraising?
Basic strategy for fundraising is tell your story, invite people to join you in mission, and ask them for gifts. It's pretty fairly, I like to say that fundraising is simple. It doesn't make it easy. But a lot of people kind of get hung up on all the things that you could be doing that don't intentionally put you in a position to ask somebody to join you in mission with the financial contribution. So that's the part that people get scared about. So they do all the other things, and then they say, "Why isn't my fundraising program working?" And so what we tell them is that you have to tell your story. You have to build relationships with donors and invite them to make a financial gift.
So let's say one spends 5 hours a year on fundraising, and it was working out pretty well for this hypothetical individual.
Yeah.
If he or she wants to add another 5 or 10 hours in the year to fundraising, where should he allocate that time?
Yeah, well, it depends on what those first 5 hours are spent doing, but most likely
Sending
those
a blast email
yeah,
to
there you go.
a list.
Yeah. So fundraising comes down to there's really kind of two sides, and technically there would be a third and possibly even a fourth. But for most nonprofits, you're looking at two sides of fundraising. Annual fund is volume of gifts. So you do that through direct mail, email, online giving, monthly giving, things like that. So you're looking for quantity of gifts from a lot of people, right? It doesn't matter the number, the amount that they're giving, because you're making up for that with quantity of gifts. So that would be annual fund. Major gifts are intentional gifts where you focus on quality, meaning the gifts are larger because you're intentionally sitting down and asking somebody for a gift. So there's fewer, but they generally speaking make up a larger piece of the pie because they're greater in size and amount. So from a fundraising standpoint, if organizations are only doing one, they're only doing that annual fund, that blast email, the letters, then what they're doing is they're not seeing the gift size increase. And so they're not taking advantage of that potential for growth of their organization through large gifts. And so that's kind of they're doing half. The other, like some organizations, they only focus on the major gifts where they identify a couple of people, board members, donors who they can ask for big gifts. They do that, but then they run out of those people because they don't have a pipeline of annual fund donors to fill it. So if you're doing limited fundraising and it's working, then the sort of recommendation or the obvious step would be, well, if you're focused on the email, how do you then build relationships with some of those email donors who can give more and invite them into giving a greater gift? If you're only asking your 5 board members for a gift every year and that's funding your operation, how do you expand the pipeline with some of those annual fund strategies?
Fundraising is only one thing you do, though. What are the other things that you do?
Gosh. So I write. So professionally, I do fundraising. I run the company. So I'm an entrepreneur and business owner. So we have a team of 5 full-time, 5 part-time, and then about 16 or 17 contractors across the country. And so managing the team is a big part of what I do. And then, I get involved with everything that we do from a business standpoint, marketing, communications, all of that. So I write a lot. We do a lot of courses. We record videos for that outside of professional work. And then I have one more thing that I would say that I've done there is this last year I got involved and we produced a playbook for campus ministries. So my background is in campus ministry. I worked at St. Mary's at Texas A&M and the Newman Center at Ohio State University. And so I was approached and said, could you put together a guide for campus ministries that illustrates the best, the highest return activities that a campus ministry can be doing and put that all into a guide? And so we wrote what we call the campus ministry playbook. It's available in PDF form right now, but we'll be turning that into a book and other courses and offerings here pretty soon. And that's been a fun project as well. Outside of professional work, family wise, I've got 4 kids and my
Congrats.
wife.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
My kids right now are 15, 10, 5, and 3. And
Wow.
so we've got we've got the high school emotions. I'm teaching my daughter how to drive right now, and then on the other end, our daughter is just finished potty training, right? So it's kind of like we've got a lot of activities in our house all the time. Try to keep them busy and entertained. We're going camping in a couple of weeks. We do jujitsu with them. Obviously, play video games and games with them when we can. So just that's probably what most of my time is spent is family and work.
What's in the campus ministry playbook?
Yeah, so we looked at it started with 4 campus ministries in the Diocese of Austin are all very strong. So Texas A&M, Baylor, University of Texas, and Texas State University all have very dynamic and robust campus ministries. So it started with a retreat, whereas those 4 campus ministries, and we looked at kind of what they were doing. It was all we knew was we wanted to produce some sort of guide, but we had no outline, we had no framework, we didn't even know what it was going to be. Out of that retreat, though, we identified 7 pillars of campus ministry. So there's worship, evangelization, community, formation, service and social justice, and operations and finance and development. So campus ministries, if they want to be strong, impactful on their campus and sustainable long term, they really need to have those 7 pillars in mind as they exist. And then what we did with those 7 pillars is we identified organizations can be level 1, level 2, or level 3 within each of those pillars. So basically, it starts with an assessment where they can look at each pillar, answer a question, questionnaire, and then that questionnaire will tell them in worship, you are by these qualitative metrics, you are level 2 in worship, level 1 in evangelization, level 1 in service, level 3 in operations. You're doing really good from an operation standpoint. So then it points out kind of where they're strong and where they're weak. And then the playbook is full of examples from campus ministries, real examples from campus ministries, and how an organization can move from level 1 to level 2 or level 2 to level 3. So our hope is that campus ministry or a diocese or group of campus ministries can use the playbook to, number one, figure out kind of a real assessment of where they are, what they're doing well, and what they could be doing better, and then work through the steps, the guidance, the advice in how to level up, so that at the end of the day, we want strong, active, vibrant campus ministries that are having an impact on their campus, that are sharing the love and the story of Christ and what he does, what he's done for us in our lives with, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 students on campus. But then also are sustainable so they can keep that up long term by investing and preparing on the organizational side so they can continue on.
That sounds great. So that
Yeah.
PDF is available free.
Yeah, so if you go to campusplaybook.com, then there's a link right there. You can put in your email address and it'll send you the PDF. I have all the assessments right now are in the PDF, but we are turning those into digital assessments. So those should be going on the website here probably in the next couple of days or weeks, just doing some formatting and some tools there. But then, somebody can go on a campus ministry or a campus minister or a chaplain or a diocesan development director or whoever can go on there and say, okay, I'm going to do these assessments. They each take, somewhere around 4 or 5 minutes. So you do 7 of those, that's a half hour. And then that gives you a score of where you are. And then you can really kind of say, okay, if we're level 2 in all of these and we're level 1 in worship, that's an issue. That's a reality that we need to address. So you focus on that. Or it could be we're level 1 in everything, but we're level 2 in service. That drives a lot of our programming. There's some ways that we can get a little bit better in that. So the strategy of how to implement it is dependent, it's all kind of dependent on where they're at and what their resources are. But what I like it is that it gives a framework that everybody can speak the same language and use the same metrics to evaluate kind of where they are and then how to get better.
Well, it's striking that those 4 campuses in the Diocese of Austin are so strong, especially St. Mary's, which is incredible, really. Why do you think it is that the Diocese of Austin is so strong?
I think that, let's think. If we go back in history, Texas A&M has had a strong campus ministry for decades. It's gotten significantly stronger over the years. I think you were saying you were just on campus recently to give a talk. And so you probably saw the church, which was a beautiful 1,600 seat church, gorgeous, but that cost $30 million for them to plan and build and outfit that with art. So they've grown to that level over the years, in part because they have the resources, right? They have the finances to do it. They generate the funding to be able to operate a campus ministry and to do growth like that, because they reach out to alumni, parents, of course, students, and then, other donors who believe in it. But even it kind of goes back to before that, leadership and vision. When I was a student at Texas A&M back in 2000, I graduated in 2004. We had really fantastic priests. And I remember, and then I started working for St. Mary's. And I remember thinking, people would say, what's going on at St. Mary's? What is it that's so great at Texas A&M? And I would say, we have fantastic priests. And they say, okay, well, there's a lot of fantastic priests. Why is that? Why is it making a difference there? And I say, well, the priests at these campus ministries at M, and now starting with A&M, but it's percolated throughout the diocese, is they have a vision for what campus ministry could be and should be, and are bold and courageous enough to be able to go out and ask people to join them in mission to make it possible. Right? A lot of campus ministry chaplains and campus ministers, their vision is limited by what they're able to do right now, right? They're one person or they're two people, and they've got a campus of 20,000 kids, and the struggles on campus are real, right? You talk about that in your show with others all the time. You see that as a as a therapist, and they're real. And so it can be very kind of daunting. And so campus ministers tend to end up with this kind of, and they don't have resources. They feel like they're on an island. They end up with this kind of like very narrow view of what's possible. And so they say, we've got 15 students coming to Bible study every week, but they're 15 really great students. And I don't want to diminish that, but that becomes kind of like that's what we can accomplish, and ministries like St. Mary's at A&M and, the other ones in the Diocese of Austin, and there's other examples all over the country. They say, we've got 15 great students coming to Bible study. That's great. But how do we realistically reach the 15,000 others that are on campus? I worked with in my work with Petrus, we work with campus ministries and organizations all over the country. And Father Ben Haas at Michigan Tech University, which is a small engineering school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, they've got a very, I think they're 7,000 students. So, it's moderate, right? It's good size. It's not too big. It's not, really small, but they're all engineers. And they've identified there's about 900, through self-identification, around 900 Catholics that attend the school. And I remember Father Ben, he says this all the time. He says, it's easy to say, well, those 900 are my target audience, right? The Catholics on campus, I want to get involved. And he said, that's not what I want to do, though. I want to be in a position, I want our organization, our campus ministry to be in a position where all 7,000 of those students, regardless of their background, where they come from, where they are right now, they feel welcome. And from a sort of practical standpoint, we want to make sure that every 7,000 student receive a viable invitation to join us for something at campus, at our campus ministry, before they graduate from school. And so that's kind of a bolder vision that comes from that leadership that, going back to, Diocese of Austin, that's the chaplains that were assigned, that have been assigned to these campus ministries. And so they're unapologetically bold about what is possible on campus, and they implement what they need to be able to get to that point.
I love that. That's such an important part of leadership. Bishop Barron said that the leader discovers, communicates, and implements the vision. Such an essential part of the leader's role.
Yeah, if you look back at campus ministry, kind of back to like the 60s and 70s, and I don't have any empirical data to support this. This is just, stories, and I've worked with a lot of campus ministers and heard about the priests, that served for decades. Campus ministry, I think, was viewed by a lot of church leadership, right? We can pick on bishops, but church leadership as, well, there's no families in those parishes, so what's the fruit that's going to come out of that? We need to put all of our resources, including our best priests, in strong parishes with a lot of families. That's where we'll see fruit come out of. That's where we'll be able to make the greatest impact. So these campus ministries kind of got relegated to like these side projects, side parishes, and they put whatever priests they didn't know what to do with at the campus ministry. And so what it ended up doing is it created these kind of weird programs. You look at the history of, many campus ministries across the country, and there's a lot of weird things that happened at campus ministries, and it just kind of became, sort of natural that the university audience, they can deal with that, whatever. Well, in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, there were some bishops, the bishop here in Austin, for example, that said, that's not how we want to treat our campus ministries. We want great priests there, chaplains, because the fruit that can come out of this is lives that are changed for people that hear their call for the rest of their life vocation, right? There's a organization, CARA, and they did a study, and individuals are more, I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but individuals are more likely to discern a call to priesthood and religious life based on a positive campus ministry experience than their entire life before that, even if they attended Catholic school. It's something about, while in college, I'm making those decisions that will impact the rest of my life. And if they have a good experience with the campus ministry, they hear that call and then they pursue religious life. Bishops that saw that are now investing. They're putting great priests, great chaplains, great staff, resources at campus ministries because they see this is a pivotal point for people's lives. We're either going to keep people in the church for the next 60, 70, 80 years of their life, or we're going to lose them and, hope they come back down the road.
Well, if you think about how revolutions start, it seems like there's an investment in college students, whether it's the communist revolution in China or the USSR. So something we can learn from
Right. Yeah.
the
Positive or negative, right? And, there's organizations we haven't talked about, some of the organizations that are doing that, but, we work with great groups like FOCUS, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, SPO, St. Paul's Outreach, that are actively investing in missionaries that are going to college campuses with the goal and the intent of evangelizing those campuses, changing those campus cultures, and then ultimately changing the culture of our country. And, I think those are the organizations that we love to support. We love to work with. We love to see grow. And I would love to see more people learn about them and join them in mission as well.
absolutely. Anything else you want to add, Andrew?
Campus ministries?
Or anything?
Yeah. I don't know. I think that, I've been doing ministry work for 20 years. I certainly enjoy it. I love it. It's not always easy. Sometimes working for the church, you sort of see how the sausage gets made. And, it does require a fortitude of faith and, a strong grounding. So, anybody who is considering working in the church or supporting the church in some way, I definitely think that it is needed. We need more professionals. We need more young people who have vision and are innovative. But I do encourage people all the time, go into it with your eyes wide open, right? Know that this is going to be a challenge. The devil will attack you as soon as you start doing good work and seeing that fruit. And so steel yourself through prayer, through good relationships. And I think people that do that and that build that network and that community, they can be very successful in this work of ministry. So I, pray for more people to come along and do that.
Do you know people who've been attacked by the devil?
Gosh, I mean, I would say that personally, me and my family, we've gone through some pretty significant struggles over the last, 18 months that I would say, the devil certainly had a hand in a lot of that, injury to myself. I broke my leg and couldn't walk for 3 months. She's 10 now, but our 8-year-old ended up in a psychiatric hospital for a week. That was one of the worst experiences of our lives. You
That's a
know,
lot for an 8-year-old. That's
yeah,
pretty unusual.
it was tough. So there were, and that trauma affects not just them, but the whole family. That put
Yeah.
a tremendous strain on me and my wife's relationship. The relationship with the kids, my sibling relationships with everybody, and we spent a lot of time asking God why. Right. And then, we spent a lot of time asking God to bring healing and peace and comfort and resilience. And so, I would say that a lot of that was, that, like I said, the devil certainly had a hand in a lot of those attacks in some way. And so it was important for us to be be grounded in faith and have those relationships to withstand.
Well, I congratulate you on enduring that suffering, man. If you're not taking flack, or if you're taking flack, you're over the target.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew Robison.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.